It's so good to
Hi,
see you.
Megan. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, thank you.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Yes, ma'am.
Feel free to unmute and say hi.
Yes, ma'am.
It's good to see you.
Hey, Megan.
It's so good to see you.
You too.
Check it out. Thank you so much.
So cute.
You were the best. Also, I had ice in here overnight and it stayed, which was
Fabulous.
awesome. I was like, this is the best cup ever. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
You guys ready? Get your calendars out and ready. We're going to start putting stuff on them. So I like to use Google Calendar. But whatever system you use is awesome. Also, in the lovely email that you guys received, you also will have, if you click on the, here, I'll share my screen. I was telling Nick, I'm like, I'm so glad I've been doing these. It's been really fun to see everybody. But here's where like you clicked for the Zoom link. If you click here where it says use this tool, it'll ask you to make a copy. And
Okay, is that going to be like the copy of your managing your timesheet and all worksheet and all that?
yep, there you go.
Alrighty.
Yeah,
And if we click on the link in the email, it should take us straight towards there, I guess.
Oh yeah, it'll take you right there. And I just want to make sure I have it copied as well for you guys and ready to go. But you know me, I always like to have some tunes on before we get started, just to like keep it jamming. I actually did awesome. I did this presentation for the College of Education and for another group of students that are freshmen at NC State. And I actually did for a group of people who were pre-service teachers, which was really cool. And they said that this was insanely helpful for getting them organized as student teachers, and they've got like a bunch of presentations that they need to do, but that's why that QR code's there, just to make sure that they had ways to get in contact with me. But you guys all might know me. You're on my email list. You got all things, which is good. There's also like a link to I was like, I think it's just my Instagram and stuff like that. So I was like, disregard the QR code in the corner. What has everyone been up to? Also, it's President's Day, so I think you guys
nothing much, just hanging in there, started working,
Great, it's so good to hear that, Nitin. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, started February 5th, working 11:45 to 2:30 with the little kids,
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that, my friend. Proud of you.
Yeah. So
Excellent. I miss my students. I was thinking I could go and visit them on March 4th because I was thinking I might be in town, and then some plans got changed. So I'm sad I don't get to see them, but I miss teaching kiddos. But now it's like I get to teach adults, which is like even better. Also, I drink yogi tea and it gives like wise messages. So my message from my yogi tea says, the unknown is where all outcomes are possible. Enter it with grace. So we're about to embark on the unknown. I'm like, this is so fitting. Excellent. And also like this picture looks very unknown. I might need to change it to something a little bit more cheerful, but it was not my like I used the slides to go presentation. So don't blame me if it looks ominous.
It kind of looks like he's about to jump off the bridge.
You know, I'm looking at that and I'm seeing that out. As you will learn tonight, I evaluate every single presentation that I do. I spend an hour like just thinking about what could have gone better. So for tomorrow, I'm going to change the image. Feel like a little bit more joyful. Maybe like a sunrise. I like a lot of sunrises, if you couldn't tell from my emails. I put a ton of them in everywhere. Well, since it is 7 o'clock, we're going to give like 45, according to my watch, more seconds for people to jump in. And then we're going to go ahead and get started, which will be fun. Also, we're going to turn off our cameras and leave questions until the end. but I'm going to make sure that there's plenty of time to make sure that you can actually apply what we're learning and get some stuff on your calendar for this week, which will be pretty good. All right. Also, just, I don't know if you guys know how to use the reactions, but there's a way that you can like click on, I don't know if you can, I don't know if I can do it, but there's, if anyone's a Steely Dan fan, feel free to do a little shout out. All right. So let's get started now. Welcome everybody to the Double Your Work in Half the Time webinar. I'm so excited to have all of you tonight. Like I mentioned previously, in the chat, I'm going to drop a document. In this document, you can take notes and follow along. And if you can take notes in this document to keep your questions in, that'll help and save us time so that we can answer all of the questions that you have at the end. So let's get started. You guys all are here if you want to get your work done faster and easier, if you want to be more productive and focused with the time that you're spending in your day, and if you want to have more time to do the work, to do things outside of work that you actually like to do. So I'm guessing that's why all of you guys are here. You want to be more productive, more efficient with your time, and that's what we're going to do tonight. So currently, I'm guessing that you're looking for some solutions for time management. So you might have experience making calendars, doing to-do lists and things like that, and you might be looking for a different approach. That is what I'm going to give you. And if you're looking to use better focus time to get projects and things like that done, that is the goal of this evening. Now, after you leave this webinar, I'm going to give you 3 different tools and I will explain what those are, but each of those 3 tools are what I use every single week to help save me time, energy, and it will just make your life so much less stressful. And so that's what we're going to do. So you're probably, you know, probably who I am, but if you don't know me, my name is Megan Wing. I am the founder of the Career Fulfillment Initiative, and I help high achievers enjoy the work that they do. Now that word causal, that means that I help people solve the root cause of their problems. So as you will learn tonight, it is a little bit about tactics. It's about understanding how to make your schedule and how to get things done. And then the other half of that is your mindset, getting to the root cause of why you might not be doing the things that are on your calendar. So that's what I do. And I'll explain more about that later, but keep your, like, that is what I do for a living. And that's why I'm doing this tonight. So tonight we are going to talk about the common problems that might happen when you are trying to manage your time. And then we're going to discuss the solution, how to schedule your time with 3 steps that I use every single week. And I've been using these steps for the past 3 years. And using these 3 tools is what have led me to completing my national board certification, ending up becoming teacher of the year, and starting this business while teaching full time. So I know that's what you guys are hoping to do, either make your systems and your processes and your business more effective, or just make your life and your work easier. And that's what we're going to be doing tonight. So the last thing that we're going to do is apply what we're learning. And you're going to actually put things on your calendar. That's why I said, if you can have a calendar, I like to use my Google Calendar. You can use a paper calendar, whatever system you use, make sure you have that ready, because we're actually going to get started and get some of those things on your calendar tonight. And then we'll get into a little bit of Q&A. So why do most people have a problem with time management? And as I was presenting to the college students, one of the things that I learned is that if we were to think about people who procrastinate, that little waiting problem, it was 87 to 95% of college students procrastinate, which means that it probably leads into our lives and everything that you might be seeing too in your day-to-day life. So a lot of us wait until the deadline to start working. And some of us think, oh, like I only work well under pressure. That is something that we can change to make it less stressful for you over time. The other thing that is a problem for us is that we have huge projects to work on, something that is, and I was actually talking with someone on this call about a big project that they have to do. And when we have a huge project, like for me, doing all the posts that I did yesterday, it's really confusing to have just one big chunk of a project on my calendar. The other thing that is a problem that we see is people will write to-do lists over and over and over again. I've had some of my clients tell me that they rewrite their to-do list every single day, and they have to reprioritize things every single day. That wastes your time, and it makes you less efficient than you could be. And then the last thing is that you create overwhelming projects. So you will take something like go through all of the clothes that are in my whole house, all in within this next 3 hours. And that's what I was doing is I cleaned up my condo and got it ready to sell. And that is way too overwhelming. It's way too big of a project for you to do in that short period of time. Now, the reason why we do this, we have good reasoning behind it. It feels like when you're writing a to-do list, it's like, oh, I'm being productive. I wrote a to-do list today. Excellent. I did something for this past hour. The next thing is that you have a human brain that's hardwired for negativity. So if you're thinking that this task is impossible, if you are thinking that you have way too much on your plate, if your mind feels like it's really cluttered with a lot of mental drama, that's because you're human. So the cool thing about that is that you have a human brain that's hardwired for negativity. And what you can do is you can reprogram your subconscious. So that's one of the things that I do with my clients is I help them to train their brain to think more positively. And the way I do that, fun fact, is you take for every one negative thought you have, you replace it with 5 positive ones. So that's something you can start doing in your day-to-day life. The other reason why you might be having trouble managing your time is it's going to take you a lot of time to complete a project. So you include ample time, which isn't a bad thing. There's just a more effective way to do it. And then the last thing that you're thinking is that if I put this huge project, like for me doing national boards on my to-do list, at least it will get done eventually, is the thought. The problem is it actually never does get done. Now, here is something that I think you guys will find fascinating because most of my clients will come to me and say things like, oh, and I actually was talking with someone today and they were saying, yeah, I can be really lazy. I don't get my work done. I put these things on my to-do list and they never get done. And here's why. Your brain's subconscious programming is designed to do 3 things. It is designed to conserve energy, seek pleasure, and avoid pain. And if you don't know that about your brain, you might be thinking, oh, I'm just a lazy person. I'm just not motivated enough. No, you just have a human brain that is motivated by keeping you safe and keeping you comfortable. So if you're putting things on your to-do list that are difficult, things that stretch you, things that you've never done before, naturally your brain is going to reject it and have a really hard time doing it. So you have to work with this motivational triad to get your work done. Now, the reason why the 3 systems that I'm going to teach you work is for 3 reasons. You are going to see that when you schedule your time, you actually conserve your energy. You're also going to see that it's actually more fun to get your work done, and it's going to be less arduous. It's going to be less difficult for you to get each task done. And so the reason why that's so important is your subconscious is running the show 80% of the time. So if you don't understand what motivates your brain, if you don't know that your brain is trying to conserve energy and do the least amount of work that it can do, you're going to continue to do things that seem really hard. And that's fighting your primitive programming, and that's fighting your subconscious. And if it's like you against you, and you'll lose every single time. So you have to almost hack your brain and be like, ooh, this program is actually helping me to work and get things done. And it works with your subconscious instead of against it. So here is the solution. When we are working and figuring out how to run our work weeks, there are 4 things that you need to do. You need to evaluate. Now, the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again without expecting a different result. I'm pretty sure that's the definition. So for you all, I know something that I would do frequently is I would have things on my to-do list that I knew weren't working, and I would schedule them every single time. Currently on my to-do list, something that I need to work on is reading. I have on my to-do list every single night that I want to read, and it's not getting done. So what I need to do is I need to evaluate and learn that if I'm not reading at night, maybe I should try and read at a different point in the day if it's a priority to me. The next thing that you need to do is simplify. You need to break down every single task that you do into something smaller, easier, and more manageable. Coming back to this conserving energy, you want to make it the least difficult you can possibly be. The next thing is, instead of making your to-do list, which is lovely, but the fact that it's not prioritized, it doesn't serve you, you have to put it on your calendar. When you're thinking about all these things that you have to do, instead of making a plan for every single day, you create a plan for every week. And it's one of my favorite things to do. I actually did it right before this call to make sure that every single thing that you have on your to-do list actually gets done. It's like we're going to go from to do to done, if you will. And then the last thing that you need to do is have clearly defined outcomes. What are you going to accomplish in this certain period of time? So, and I'll give you more examples about this as we go, but one of the things that I would have grading, and it would just be something that would sit on my to-do list forever. Instead of having a clear outcome, like have math test graded and put into Power School, which was the program that we used to grade. That is clearly defined. I can say, yes, this task is done, and this will be completed by the time period that I have. So that is how we're going to work tonight. Now, here is the process. This is how we double your productivity in half the time, doubling your work in half the time. The first thing that you have to do is do a program called Monday Hour 1. This is what we do on the first hour of your work week. And this is something that I do in the first hour of my work week, where I take time to write out a very clear, detailed, and focused to-do list for every single thing that I need to get finished for the entire week. Then you put it on your calendar. Seems simple, but it is seriously a revolution for so many people. The next thing that we need to do is break down the results that you want to create. Depending on what your project is, for all of us, we'll have projects for work, for life, for different things. And you want to make sure that you create manageable bite-sized tasks that you can actually do. And then the last part is to do Friday Hour Done. To create work-life balance, you want to make sure that you are evaluating after your work week is done, and you're going to reflect on the week past and all the wonderful things that happen and make improvements and adjustments for the following week. And again, like I said, I've been doing this process for 3 years, and it has been the number one way that I've been able to create this business, to be more effective, and also to have the life that I want and the relationships I have. So here is Monday Hour 1. And if you're following along on the worksheet, it looks a little different. I'll go forward a bit. It looks like this. So if you're following along on the worksheet, that's how I do my Monday Hour 1. And these are the categories that are listed in rank with priority. So the first category, you guys might be surprised, but it's yourself. You need to make sure that you're prioritizing yourself every single day. Now, this is coming from someone who didn't believe in self-care at all and was like, yeah, whatever. Don't want to make sure that I was like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Like that was kind of like my philosophy. And I would never put different times when I was eating different meals. So I would miss meals entirely. And I would stay up extremely late and wake up really early. It was like there was no sleep. And that worked for a while until I was in my third year of teaching. And I think I was working 5 jobs at the time. I was working a lot. And I remember I was going from job to job. Yeah, all the jobs. And I remember as I was going through this working process, and I started feeling kind of sick. And I just kept going. And I started feeling more and more sick. And I was like, yeah, push through. I was like, I will be fine. I would never take sick days because I didn't want to burden the TAs or any substitutes in our school. And it was also really hard to make sub plans. So I keep pushing through the sickness. And I remember I was going through a student's backpack in the back of the classroom, and everything went black. And I woke up in a pool of sweat and I had passed out in my classroom floor. And I thank God no students were in there. We were all good. But I remember calling Lisa, who was another teacher at the school, being like, hey, so don't panic, but I did pass out on my classroom floor and I will need to have some assistance. And so she came in, and another teacher, Laura, ended up having to come and take me to the urgent care that was nearby. So the reason why I say that it's really important that you take care of yourself first is the reason why you're putting yourself last is because you want to prioritize helping others most of the time. Most of us feel like that. But the one thing I was so afraid of is burdening other people is what I created because I didn't take care of myself. Not only did Laura have to leave school, but 2 of the teacher assistants that we had to cover our classes while she was taking me there. Now that's not cool, but it was all because I wasn't able to take care of myself first. So within this category, you'll have things like sleep. I want you to consciously decide what hours you're actually going to sleep and what hours you're waking up every single day, and choose times that work for you. This could also be, like I mentioned before, meals. I swear to you guys, if I don't put, for some reason, if I accidentally delete lunch on my calendar, I will forget to eat lunch. It just always happens because then people book calls and then I'll put projects in and I'm like, I am really hungry. It's 3 o'clock and I'm feeling like starving, and it's because I haven't had lunch. So make sure you're putting yourself first. Now, for my example, as a life coach, one of the things that I prioritize is my mind. I want to make sure that I'm sharp, I'm clear. And one of the ways that I do that is through thought work. It's kind of like an active meditation where I get all of my thoughts downloaded onto a piece of paper and clean it up so I'm ready to perform at my highest level. So I do that every day from 7 to 7:30. That's my thing. The next thing is your relation. So that is the first category, yourself. And we will actually put these on your calendar, but just to be clear, you need to put yourself first. The second thing, surprisingly, also isn't work related. It is your relationships. I listen to something about like the way I want to live my life every morning. And one of my mottos that I have is that relationships are the essence of this beautiful life. Now, for your relationships that you want to create, I have value very highly my family. My family comes first. They are some of the most important people in my entire life. And my little brother is one of my best friends in the world. And he moved away to Boston. So I don't get to see him as much as I want to. So every single Tuesday, so tomorrow from 11:15 to 12, Chris and I always have our weekly call where we check in and see how we're doing. Now, when you're thinking about creating relationships and things like that, there was a story that a friend of ours was telling us one day at a party, and he was saying that the guy that he worked for, the reason why these 2 things are the most important, even though I am a career coach and I help people with their careers, the reason why these 2 things are so important is our culture is extremely work focused. Western culture is as a whole, and we can get so wrapped up in our careers, we forget to actually live our lives. So the story a friend was telling us is that he worked for a man at a practice that he had. And he was saying that this man had been working at his dental office for like 70 years. And, or not 70 years, he was 70 years old. And they were just about to go on a trip and travel. And his wife broke her hip. and they weren't able to go and travel and do the trips that they wanted to. And so our friend walked into the room and he sees the guy like just sitting at his desk looking really like very, very quiet and like sad. And he asked him, he's like, hey, what's going on? Is everything okay? And the dentist said, I missed it. And he missed life. He worked so hard that he didn't travel, do the things that he wanted to do, and he let life pass him by. That's why these two things are the most important things that you need to have on your calendar, because life is about so much more than work. And that's what we want to prioritize first. So make sure you're prioritizing relationships. As I'm saying this, start thinking about people that you want to get in contact with, whether it's friends from school, whether it's family that you want to get in contact with, and make sure that you make them a priority in your life. Now, moving on to the next thing. These are meetings. So these are just generally scheduled things that you will have on your calendar. Perchance this webinar was one of the things that is a meeting that you had on your calendar. And these are things that are just like regularly scheduled. Maybe doctor's appointments are on there, typical things that you have during your work week and day. So for instance, I coach someone today from 8 to 8:45. Now, one of the most important things that I have found about meetings, one of my friends, you guys can look, Emily Mathura, she just did a reel talking about how Monday R1 was a game changer for her. And one of the things that we both have found, she's a med student, and she's in between her second and third year of medical school. And one of the things that both of us found is that we would have our meetings on our schedule. We would have them, we knew that we had to go to them. Here was the issue: transition time. That was the thing that was missing. So we would be like, yes, I have to be at my, for her, she was like, I need to be at my class at 8, but she would forget that you have to go from your home to your class. And then for me, I would be like, yeah, like I know I need to meet up with this person for lunch, but I wouldn't include any of the travel time. So now I make sure that I include travel time, and I'm going to show you guys my calendar, and I include that in my schedule every single week. So that is something that you need to include: transition time between each task. It also, if you're thinking about just like the human like brain as a whole, you, in order to go from task to task, guess how many minutes it takes your brain to transition? For the best of us, and this is from the Huberman Lab podcast, he's a brilliant, brilliant scientist, but it's 15 minutes. So if you are thinking, oh, I just have like this like 15-minute thing to do, it's like a 5-minute thing here, 5-minute thing there, 5-minute thing there, you're not accounting for all the transition time in between. So you need to make sure that you are including physical transition time and mental transitional time within tasks. For me, I don't allow anyone to schedule any meetings 15 minutes before a coaching call and 15 minutes after, just so that I can have time to like prepare myself for the call and then like unwind after a call. The next thing, and we're going to do, and you'll see results, I actually moved down on the worksheet, and I went to explain it before I shared this with you. But a thing like results is to have a presentation made. That's what we're going to talk about in this next category, but it's something that is a big chunk of a larger project that you want to make sure you're including in your calendar. So for instance, I made this presentation, I believe it was like February 2nd. I've updated it since, but I think it was February 2nd when I made this. And it was a Sunday from 10 to 11 a.m. And then the last thing are miscellaneous things. So these are things like packing, laundry, cooking, random things that you have, going to the grocery store, random things that you have throughout your day. But these are the things that also get pushed a lot of the time. They're things that you remember that you need to do. For instance, I have to renew my passport. And that was something like I literally was just looking at it. I put it underneath my desk so I wouldn't forget. But that was something that I had to put on my to-do list. And it's just been on my to-do list. And it doesn't actually get finished until I put it on my calendar. So those are all things that we have for our calendar. Now, like I said before, I wanted to explain how to break down results. So if you have a big project, like for me, grading, that was my nemesis. It would stay on my to-do list for ages. And the reason why it did is because I didn't break it down into something that was manageable. So it would just sit and wait every single day. Now, the way that I had to break down grading is I would break down the whole of grading into each subject. So I would have writing, science, and math. Those were 3 of the subjects I taught. And then during our specials time, I believe it was on Monday, I would take that time and we created a persuasive writing conventions checklist. So I would check for punctuation, capitalization, and I would create and like finger spacing and things like that. So every Monday during our specials time, I would come back to the classroom after transitioning my students to their specials, and I had the writing test, their writing project out, and the conventions checklist. And I would just go through and be like, okay, done, done, done. And I would just go through and grade conventions. Notice that I wasn't grading for content. I wasn't grading for anything more intense. I was just going for the conventions. And by breaking it down into that smaller piece, it made it so much easier for me to get accomplished. The next thing, and also notice it's in past tense, it was graded. When I'm writing the things on my to-do list and on my calendar, I make it past tense so that it is seen in my brain as, oh, this result will be done by the time 1:30 comes around. So that is how you break down your results. I'll give you 2 more examples. For science, I would have on Tuesday, so we had specials in Spanish. So our students would go to Spanish. And during that Spanish time on Tuesdays, I would review their science projects on an online platform called Seesaw. So the students, they would actually, it was really cool. I mean, like we use so much more technology in the classroom than we used to, but I would literally go in and I would see what science projects all students did. And I would listen to what they said and I would click review and I would put like a little comment on it. But again, notice how it is in the past tense. This is how I would make sure that the result, every single science project had to be completed by that 2:15 time. Then on Thursday, this was during lunch, I would have a parent come in and do lunch bunch for me. And I would be like, hey, can you cover lunch for me? And that was to make sure that I could get some of my assessments into the grading website of PowerSchool, like I mentioned before. Again, put in grading website, like that assessment is finished. And the reason why I did this as like a pretty short thing, it would literally be like, I would take my grading book and be like, okay, this kid got a 3, this kid got, and we would do a grading system like A, B, C, like I would just go through and give each child a grade. And the reason why I made this a little bit shorter and not as big of a task is if you've ever been in elementary school, things can get kind of crazy in the cafeteria. And I knew that handing over my students to a parent who has never done lunch duty or things like that, a lot of the times it would be crazy. And I would be like, okay, I'm just going to get the kids through the lunchroom, through the lunch line myself. Here's how you do this. Here is the key, making sure that everything was good. And then I would run up to my classroom. So I made these specific to the time period that I had. And I would do like, you could even break it down like a subject a day. I didn't do that intensely, but that would be another great way to do it. Oh, okay. So I wanted to give you ready for, I always forget that that's the next slide. Okay. So I'm going to show you what my calendar looks like. And this is what it looks like that week. And it's very overwhelming. So I just want to prep you mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually for this experience. And I want to let you know that everything that's on this calendar is not something for work. Like I said before about Monday hour 1, a lot of this stuff is like for relationships, for myself, for miscellaneous things. So it is not as overwhelming as it seems. So just take a deep breath. I'm going to show you my calendar. So this is what I do. This is what I did. I was guessing this is that week in February. Yeah. It's like prep yourself. So this was my calendar for that week. And as you can see, the things that are in blue are for things like just to take care of myself. So eating lunch, like I said, every day, if I don't put lunch on here, picking up medication, doing my thought work and meditation, working out, it won't happen. And I know that I do my workouts best in the morning. And so I need to make sure that I continue to do that. So these are all just things for me. Miscellaneous things like unpack for my trip. I need to make sure I did that. I hadn't unpacked from the trip, and then I needed to like repack for the trip, another trip that I had the following day. So those were the things that I would do for myself were dark blue. Then the miscellaneous things were in light blue. The transition time, like I have drive to Asheville. That was something that was really important that I needed to do for that week. I attended like this networking event just to get to know some other super cool entrepreneurs. So it's called a gala, which is a fancy name for it. But I included driving to and driving back for it. I included time for me to get ready and make sure that I was looking funky fresh, ready to go. And so I needed to make sure I did that. I had time to plan all the lovely things that you see on Instagram or on Facebook. I make sure I plan time for that every single week. I had time to finish this presentation. And like I mentioned before, I break down things into very manageable chunks for the projects that I have to do. So I actually wrote the presentation the week prior. So I had every single thing that I needed to write. That's why this is only an hour long, because it didn't take me long to get my thoughts onto the PowerPoint. It was just really manipulating the slides. And then the next thing are the meetings. So those are in gray, the coaching calls that I have. I have on red important meetings. So those were consult calls. I did 3 consultations that week. I also did this same presentation for the the freshmen at NC State. And then I have a 200K call. So I include some calls in yellow. The next thing is I prepare for every single thing that I do. So I want to make sure that for a consultation, I spend an hour getting ready for that consult before I decide to meet with somebody. I want to make sure that I'm valuing their time and I'm thinking of all the ways that I could help them and brainstorming before I meet with that person. Then after I meet with the person, I just spend a whole other hour, and I only did 45 minutes here, but I usually spend a full hour evaluating the consultation that I did. So I take a whole hour after I do the consult to make sure and think about, okay, this is what was good. This is what I could do better for next time. I also get coached. So I have some of my coaching calls in here. I think I had 2 this week. Yeah, I had the mentoring session and the diamond session. I make sure that I prioritize getting coached myself because I know that means I can show up better for other people. And I think that's about it. Yeah. And then my relationship. So like I hung out with some friends from college that night. I always go out on Thursdays with my friends in Winston-Salem, which is great. I had lunch with somebody. So again, it's not as overwhelming and crazy as it seems. I talked with my mom too. We were supposed to talk tonight, but planning for this presentation, I was like, we can talk later. So we move things around. Now, looking at this, you're probably like, this is crazy. Did she actually get all this stuff done? Yes and no. I got most of it done, but there were 2 things on here that I want you to notice. This large chunk, notes of the pre-event videos, and make 3-year plan / fill out advanced selling. Those are really large chunks of time. And these 4 consultations evaluated. These 3 chunks. Remember how I talked to you about results? How you need to break it down into something more manageable? Guess what were the 3 things I didn't get finished that week? I didn't get the notes done. I did not make my 3-year plan, and I did not get the consultations evaluated because it was too big. Even though it was clear and I said, okay, 4 consultations evaluated, it wasn't small enough for my brain to make it something that was manageable. So what do you do? And I said, read consultation code. I still haven't finished reading that. So it's like, you need to change things. So what happens is every single week, I usually do this, actually, it's called Friday Hour Done, but I actually do this on Monday before I make my calendar for the following week, is you have to evaluate your week. You have to think about the things that worked. For me, something that worked is to make sure I include prep for consult right before the consult call. I was like, that got me in such a good mindset. I was like ready to roll. It was great. So that is something that worked for me. Another thing that worked for me was doing this presentation, making sure I prepped and evaluated before and after. That was phenomenal. I felt like I was really ready. I knew what to do. It was great. Other things that were working for me is making sure that I unpacked and had laundry like scheduled around each other. That was really helpful. And making sure that like I picked up my medication at this time, like a lot of things during my week worked. And what happens is, again, like I mentioned before, your brain is programmed to function more negatively. So for every one negative thought you think, you need 5 positive thoughts to replace it. So before you get into what didn't work yet, what you're going to do differently, you have to focus on what is working. So you have to think about 5 things that you accomplished. What were the results that you created this past week, and how did you create these results? So another thing just about this, the reason why it's so important to talk about what works first. When I first moved to Winston, I had never had free time like this. Like, I'm not like free time, but like more unstructured time, because I was a teacher before. So I had the school day. It was very structured for me to follow into. As a full-time coach, there was no structure. There was no rule book. There was no guide to tell me how to live my life. So I was like, you know what? Let's try, even though for my entire life, I always worked out in the morning. The 6 a.m. yoga class was my jam. I even taught it on Friday mornings. So for some reason, my brain was like, yeah, let's start working out in the afternoon and at night. Like, let's just throw that in the mix. Guess what didn't work? Me working out in the afternoon or night. Because I didn't realize that that was something that was working for me. If you don't really think about consciously what's working, you won't do it. And then you're going to stop doing things that are working, which is just foolish use of your time. So make sure that you think about, and I actually have it separated on your Google document, separated into including 5 things that you accomplished as the first thing that you do. Then think about what worked to get those 5 things accomplished. Then you can let your brain go into strategic pessimism mode. I'm going to say that again, strategic pessimism mode. Yes, I want you to be a little pessimistic. Shockingly enough, from a positive lady like myself, I want you to use your pessimism and negativity strategically. So I want you to think about what didn't work yet. I want you to really get into it and think, okay, this did not work. Me scheduling this huge chunk of time did not work. Making this, like, to make my 3-year plan did not go well. I did not get these consults evaluated. That didn't happen. So you want to figure out all of the obstacles, all of the problems, and then you can solve it for the next week. I don't want you to keep your same schedule, the exact same, every single week for the rest of your life until you die. It's like, we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we're changing it every single week and making it better every single time. That's one of the reasons why I think I've been able, and my clients are growing so quickly, is because it's like, instead of just doing trial and error, they do trial and evaluate. They figure out what's working, what's not working, and what they can do differently. And they get better every single week. I ask them these questions. First thing I do, every single coaching call that I do, I say, what are the wins that you had? What didn't work? What worked? What didn't work? What are you going to do differently? That's the first thing I do, is I have them do this every single coaching call. And that's why they're able to grow so quickly. And that's why you've seen the testimonials. It's like, it's crazy. It blows my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. But it's like because they're learning and growing very, very quickly, and they're thinking this through. So what I can learn from what didn't work, I learned that these were too large chunks of time. So what I did instead is, for the pre-event videos, there were 7. I had notes for 4 of them. That means I needed to watch 3 more videos. What I could do is I could take time during my Monday hour 1, see how long those 3 videos were, and put that chunk of time into my schedule. And guess what? I did that the following week. Those videos, those notes were done. I took notes, I figured it out. So you need to evaluate, get better. No one's perfect. You're never going to do this exactly right, but you need to get better every single week. Another thing that didn't work yet is, a lot of times things would come up. Like, I would need to write my Thoughtful Thursday email that would need to go out and do things like that. So you can see all this white space here. You need to leave specific times to get things done in between your work week. So making sure that that's there as well. So last but not least, I love this quote because I'm like, time management is life management. And I hope that one of the biggest takeaways that you'll have from this call tonight is that your life is so much more than your work. When you look back on your career, when you look back on this decade of your life, when you look back on your life as a whole, I want you to remember that your worth is so much more than your work. And I want you to think about what you genuinely want to get out of your life. That's the most important part about all this. That's why I do what I do, is to make sure that you are feeling whole and complete, not just in your career, but in your life as well. And so as I was thinking about going full time, I was trying to figure out how I could encompass a coaching program that talks about your career, but also talks about your life. And that's why I created the Career Fulfillment Initiative. I wanted to make sure that I take people. One of my favorite things was teaching for an entire 10 months of someone's life. I want to take you through 10 months of your life, and I want to help you grow in every possible way. And I know fulfillment is a really big promise. So I wanted to break it apart into things that would create a fulfilling career and life, because it really is so much more than your career. So what I did is, on top of doing time management, I also help my clients to overcome burnout, doing things like going for a job search, trying to create a business from scratch. I mean, like, I saw this Vine, they're real, the other day, where it was like, I wanted to have more work-life balance. So I decided to become an entrepreneur, and now I work 24/7. And it's like, no, I do not want you to do that if you have your own business. So I teach you how to overcome burnout. I also teach you how to create confidence. If you are looking to get a raise, if you are looking to change jobs, if you are looking to start your own business, y'all, you got to be confident about that. You've got to go out there, and I teach you how to generate that within yourself instead of looking for external validation from other people, because that's one of the biggest things that people do. And that's the biggest mistake that takes away from your confidence. The next thing is creating that work-life balance. Now, I did have on here that I worked on a Sunday, and this past weekend, I made it my business-focused weekend. And most of the time, I really encourage my clients not to work on the weekends. However, I included my rest time during the week. So I gave myself plenty of ample time to rest. And I'm considering doing a business-focused weekend once a quarter. So once every 3 months, not something that I plan on doing every single weekend, but every once in a while, to keep myself balanced, I want to make sure that I include time for work and time for life. And the last thing I do is, not only do I want to make an impact on your career within the 10 months that we're working together, I want you to see where you're going to be 10 years from now. So in 2032, when you're looking back at your life, I want to be like, that's it. In February of 2022, that's when I made this plan. And now I'm looking back at my life in February of 2032. And I'm like, this is the life I was meant to live. I literally created the life that I wanted. And so that's what I help my clients do. So I know lots of you guys are thinking about like coaching with me or thinking about that. The link for the consult call will be in the follow-up email that I'll send on Thursday. And it's also like all over my Instagram, all over that QR code. And it's completely free to just do a consult with me. And some of you on this call have done consult calls with me. And I want to assure you, it is not something that you are ever being forced or pressured into doing something. It's literally just to help you make a plan for the next 10 months of your life and to have an opportunity to work together, but it is never a necessity. So, you guys ready? Let's start applying what you guys have learned. Let's start managing your time. So I'm going to drop in the chat again this lovely worksheet, and it will have you click and it'll force a copy so that you're not editing on someone else's. This is completely yours. And you are going to be able to save this into your Google Drive or things like that. Now, in each of these areas, there is a category for self-care, a category for relationships, a category for meetings, a category for miscellaneous, and then there's going to be a category for results. Now, if we have time this evening, I will talk more about results. That's where I really put my protocols and procedures in place. That's how I was able to do the the posting that I do, because I'm pretty pretty organized about the way that I like to have my posts done and things like that. But tonight I want to just focus on you getting these 4 things: self-care, relationships, meetings, and miscellaneous onto your calendar. So I'm going to give you like a minute or two to get this on your calendar. And yeah, I'm going to give you a minute to do that. I'm going to play a little bit more Steely Dan while you guys do that. So go ahead and get started. 60 seconds on the clock. See if you can get 1 task in each category. Go. And then we'll do Q&A in just a second. So if you're confused about one of these, let me know, and then we can. Like, gotta get another song going. I love it too. Figured it'd be a crowd favorite. All right, wrap it up. Maybe like 10 more seconds. And obviously you have this worksheet forever, so no pressure to get them all figured out right now. I just want to get you guys started. Now, the next thing that I want to encourage you to do is pull out that calendar while we're doing the Q&A. And for those 4 things, I want you to actually put and allot time for on your calendar. I want you to make time for all those things that are important to you and make sure that you have time for them. So that is it, everybody. That is the presentation. I want to answer questions, answer anything that you have, whether it's about the program or about Monday hour 1, Friday hour done. What you got? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you want.
Megan,
Yeah.
hi. Your color coding, do you have like a key for that to explain the colors?
See, I'm so glad you asked. I was thinking about doing that, but not really. So I have, thank you. So blue is for me in personal care, and then pink is for relationships. But in green, I have for things that are like in my business, because it's like my favorite color. But it's really like red, orange, and yellow are meetings. So it's like, it's just kind of a mix, and gray. I was trying to color code it in my Monday hour 1. I was like, that's kind of a mess. So we'll just say warm colors, and gray are for things that are meetings or things for my business as well. But yeah, that's a good point. You could totally color code them based on whatever you need to do. I just like to have red.
It's pretty easy to color code in Google Calendar.
Yeah, and I actually I showed someone else in a presentation, and I realized the reason why I have this lovely picture and I'm not showing you my actual calendar is to keep the privacy of my clients. And I was like, oh, but when you do it, what you do is you do 2 fingers, or when you click on making an event, if you scroll down, it's really easy. You can pick any color you want of the basic colors, and then that's really easy to do. That's a great idea.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Good question. Another question I had, of course, I'm so glad this helped. Another question that one of the seniors brought up at NC State, because they are in a classroom environment where lots of things are happening very quickly and they need to be getting like papers graded, like they might get a paper on Tuesday that's due and graded for their students' parents on Wednesday. So when things like that happen that are unexpected, what you have to do is you have to leave wiggle room. And for things like for me, I could move my notes of the pre-event videos to a different time. I could move my consultation evaluations if I needed to. So I make sure that I have things on my calendar that are easy to move and easy to move around, just to make sure that I have ample time to get the things that pop up, the unexpected things done. And then I make the note of it and I'm like, oh, okay, this is an important time to make sure that I've got time in my schedule for another thing. Good question. Also, I know a couple of you guys have small businesses, and I was talking with people about this before, about like systems and processes. So I'm going to show you guys this really quick. So this weekend, again, was the weekend I decided to make my business focus weekend. So like I said, I'm kind of crazy about the processes that I do. So if there's a result that you need to create and replicate every single week, like for me, posting is something that I need to replicate every single week. I have a very specific process to go about that. So for me, I want to have each of my pillars of my business in that I cover every single week. So this week, I'm going to be talking about goals for your long-term plan. Next week, I'm going to be talking about burnout. Then I'll talk about creating confidence. And then I actually go back into talking about your 10-year plan in that second week of March, the second week of March, because guess what? I'm doing another webinar. Fun fact, the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd of March as well. So I wanted to make sure, like last week, I was sprinkling in a lot of time management things because I'm going to be talking about that this upcoming week. And then I also have work-life balance here. So I want to make sure that I hit every topic. So that's how I create that program. And then for each day, I have a different topic. So I'll do a training on Monday. So today I did like the 2 steps for goal setting. Then I'll talk about a problem. So tomorrow I'm going to talk about how only 3 people set goals as adults, which is 3% of people, which is sad. And then I'll talk about a personal story. So for me, like talking about my stories with making my long-term plan and making goals. Then I'll talk about my values and lessons and results. And then so every week I know this is my protocol. I have my topic, I have my style, and then I write the headlines. So I write the headlines for every single post and I make sure that's all done. And then I go back in and I actually write the post. So each of these is a blue document that I actually have a separate writing for. And like I was saying on my Instagram story, I literally wrote out every single post from now until March 25th, yesterday. It was the most productive weekend I've ever had. I'm really proud of myself. real, like I'm doing reels, but I'm getting proud of myself because it took a while to figure this out. But it's something that I think is really, really having those protocols and procedures in place for you or for your business are really, really important. So yeah, that was just something I wanted to share. Yes, Mrs. Cornwell.
Hey, Megan, that was such a great presentation. Thank you so much.
So
I wanted to ask you a little bit more about self-care and how you said that was, that obviously that's very important. And one of the challenges that I have is that I start my day really early with meetings, which start at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. But I know that I need to exercise, and what works best for me is doing it in the morning, because if I don't do it in the morning, I know it's not going to happen. So my question is, does that mean, I guess that means that I need to get up like at 4 a.m. to get it done?
That could be one decision.
Because it's not working the other way. So I know that's what works best for me, but I also like my sleep. So
So are the reason your phone, so do you have calls that like start at like 6 a.m. right now?
I do.
The time difference. Yeah. So I was
Yeah.
like, I figured. So that it could be the case. Another thing that I heard of some of my clients doing is for that first call, they will actually wear a nice shirt on top of workout clothes. And then if they have a break between calls, they literally like go and work out, shower, and get ready for the next call. So that's another way that you can do it and problem solve it. If that's a possibility for you, another possibility would be go to bed a little bit earlier and then wake up a little bit later.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Or go to bed a little
Or
earlier.
the other earlier. Wake up, yeah, I knew
It's
I knew what you were saying.
like, don't wake up later. That actually is not great. That would not be helpful. But yeah, I
Okay,
hope
thank
that
you.
helps. And or another thing is like, and I don't love this, and I'm not sure how you feel about this, but like using dry shampoo, and especially like if you don't get super sweaty, then at least you wouldn't have to shower. And then that could be another thing you don't have to shower
Yeah.
after you work out, you know?
Yeah, I think the bottom line is I just need to get up early, whether it's 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. and just do what I need to do, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say so. And I will say, so I used to go to CrossFit, and they switched their times from a 6 a.m. to a 5:30 class, which meant that I needed to get up at like 4:40, like 5, and then actually worked really well for me. For some reason, that 5 a.m. wake up was actually something really awesome for me, and it actually worked. Now I've gone back to waking up at 6, but like it actually wasn't bad. So have you, if you give it a try, who knows, maybe it could work, you know?
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. This is so awesome. I'm going to be doing, just so you guys know, I've had a lot of people ask, and I might need to change the flow of my webinars, but I've been doing the same webinar 3 times in a row, just to make sure that if there are issues in scheduling and things like that, that people have 3 chances to see the webinar. So I'm going to be doing the exact same webinar tomorrow and on Wednesday. Now that you have this worksheet, one of the things that like I love to do is like, I will go through and I will listen to a webinar multiple times and take notes and catch different things. Apparently, according to research, they say that your brain can actually only absorb 20% of the information that you hear in a presentation. So the more that you hear this, the more you'll pick up on different things. I'll probably say different things. And if you want, if you had time scheduled tomorrow and Wednesday to come to this webinar, you can use that time to be filling out this worksheet during my call and like listening, but like filling it out simultaneously. And then you can ask more questions, because I'm sure as soon as you finish this, I'm guessing there's going to be questions, just human nature. So if you want, feel free to for sure do that. Also, if you are more of a handwriting person, on my website, I have a whole slide, and obviously you're here, so you don't need to double your time anymore, but I have a printable PDF as well, where I have yourself, I have the result breakdown, and you list listing the times or the tasks and the times it takes. And then I have Friday hour done, and you can print this as well. And that's another option for you. And then I have the editable Google document here. So if you need the link again, it's right here. And then I have the whole slideshow if you ever want to go back. And it's a Google Doc link. So if I change the slides, like we mentioned, maybe on the first slide, it being a little morbid, I'm going to make sure I change that, and hopefully it'll be changed here too. So feel free to come. You do not have to come, but feel free to come and fill out your worksheet just as you go. And then, of course, if you have questions, please ask. Don't feel, I know it can be kind of intimidating to unmute yourself in front of strangers. So feel free to reach out to me. This is my email, meganwingcoaching@gmail.com. You guys all got the email from me, so feel free to come. And if you want to work with me one-on-one, please feel free to reach out for that consult. I take them very seriously, but I do want to let you know that it's totally free. And if it's just something that you want to take advantage of, a lot of the people who are on this call have done a consult with me, and there's no pressure ever. it is just something to help you make your plan. So yeah, that is it. Oh, also, I had a quick question on here. The unexpected interruptions, I would make time for that in your schedule, and I would start to track in the Friday hour done, and I would see when are the unexpected interruptions coming. If they are something that is, it's seeming like it is during the same time, don't plan things for that time. So that is it. And also, I'll stay on a little bit longer if anyone has any questions, but feel free to go. Enjoy your President's Day evening. Have fun. And of course, reach out to me. You know, all my contact info. I'm very easy to talk to. So if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks again, everybody. Have a good one. Feel free to unmute and say bye. Bye. It's good to see you all. All right, I'm gonna roll.
You did awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jody. It was so good to see you. Have a good one.
You too.
Great presentation, Megan.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Megan.